Welcome back, true believers and all you merry Marvelites, to another very interesting episode of Marvel's Avengers 101. So, ever since the War Table livestream occurred for this game on June 24th, there has in fact been quite the influx of information for this title being revealed slowly and steadily as the days have progressed. And while I might still be feeling skeptical about the game overall based on the footage we saw, I still fully appreciate the developers for elaborating upon more info that we can expect to be entailed within the game once it does release on September 4th, especially in regards to the primary factor that we will be discussing today revolving around the co-op mode as well as the multiple Warzone missions. And even though we did see segments of the co-op gameplay in action during the War Table livestream, I do believe this recent post from the PlayStation blog website does put things in a better perspective. And just to clarify, this article does reiterate quite a lot of info that we do already know about Marvel's Avengers, so I might be skipping over some of the other bits that are featured in here and primarily go over the most important segments. Now, this particular PlayStation blog post was written directly by the Warzone director himself of Marvel's Avengers with that of Philippe Therian. And while there are a lot more details to uncover within this article, I'm mainly going to go over the co-op aspects for today, and in turn, we'll save other sections of this article to dive into within later videos, since there is quite a lot to get through. But specifically in regards to the Warzones themselves, Philippe goes on to state the following. Hello, PlayStation fans, our first Marvel's Avengers War Table stream has just concluded, and we've unclassified a massive amount of new intel and insights about the game. While we have talked extensively about the original narrative and stellar voice cast behind our Reassemble campaign, this was our first formal dive into co-op. So to summarize some of Philippe's statements, he does go on to say that we can in fact explore the overall area of the Chimera helicarrier as well as interact with the War Table to select certain missions. But as for those missions themselves, this is where we start to get a better understanding as to how exactly the hero missions and Warzone missions are different from one another. And as he goes on to say, the key difference between hero missions and Warzone missions is that while the former tends to be story focused and very cinematic, a Warzone is an expansive, explorable space loaded with side content including concealed caches to uncover, powerful bounty enemies to defeat, aim depots to take over, faction allies to rescue, and hidden loot to claim. While there is a main objective in each Warzone mission, how you choose to approach them is up to the player. If the mission objective is outdoors, for instance, the heroes can approach from any direction and tackle the challenge as they see fit. So as I've stated previously in other videos, just try to think of the Avengers project as Marvel's take on Destiny. You will be able to play online with your friends by taking out a bunch of enemies while also trying to level up your character and grinding for the best sets of gear. And just to clarify, one aspect about Marvel's Avengers which I still see a lot of people thoroughly confused about is indeed no. Marvel's Avengers is not an open world game, but instead there will be multiple hub worlds to explore within the Marvel universe. So while you will be able to explore these quote-unquote expansive and explorable spaces, which are indeed loaded with multiple side objectives to try and take on, you won't be able to try and fully explore it like you would for Marvel's New York, for example, within Spider-Man PS4. And whether or not that aspect about the game ends up working in its favor is something that we'll just have to wait and see on. And as for these other side objectives that specific paragraph dives into, we will analyze those in just a bit. But to continue with the article itself, it goes on to state that each Warzone mission will display the difficulty and suggested power level before launching. Although difficulty can be user adjusted, the higher the challenge, the bigger the rewards. Once you select a Warzone mission, you'll board the Quinjet. And if you have matchmaking enabled, you can be match made with up to 3 other unique Avengers for a party of 4 heroes. If you choose to take on Warzone missions solo, you will be able to choose from AI companions whom you've reassembled, unless the narrative prescribes a specific team composition. They will reflect the skills and gear you've previously equipped them with. Now, I don't know about you guys, but given the fact that we will indeed have to be paired up with other Avengers no matter what, either if you are playing it either co-op or solo, whether they do end up being other players or just AI companions, this sounds like to me a little bit more of a dumbed down mechanic from that of Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Now obviously, if you do end up playing a Warzone mission in a co-op party, you will only be able to play that particular mission as the hero that you have chosen. But say that you decide to play a Warzone mission all by yourself. Even though you will technically be playing it solo, you will still have 3 other AI heroes at your side. However, based on this description, it doesn't sound like that you will be able to freely switch between whichever hero hero that you want to play as during that mission. Whereas in the other co-op-centric Marvel game with that of Ultimate Alliance, you can choose a team of up to 4 heroes and then freely switch in between them whenever you want during gameplay. But in this case, if I decide to play as Iron Man throughout the entirety of the mission, I will have to solely play as him until that mission is over. So while this obviously makes complete sense within a co-op aspect, I don't really see this working all that well in a single player scenario. Hence why the hero missions are probably going to be the main missions that I will enjoy playing through the most. And while I will be more than happy to play Warzone missions online with my friends, I don't necessarily think I will be playing these missions solo even though there is an option to do so. But still, hopefully the co-op aspects that this game will entail will hold a lot more weight to it once we are actually able to play it for ourselves. But as Philippe continues with the article, he goes on to break down different Warzone mission types that we will be able to play through within the game. So knowing that there will be some form of variety when it does come to these Warzone missions is just a huge sigh of relief. And based on the descriptions he did provide, it does sound rather intriguing. And as he says in the article, our idea for Warzones came from a desire to have missions across diverse regions. And War Tables allows us to address threats globally. These regions vary from sprawling cities to dense forests and barren badlands. They also feature different times of day and weather, so missions in the same region will offer lots of variety. Additionally, Marvel's Avengers features an array of mission types offering different rewards. And yes, like we saw in the footage provided in the War Table livestream, each new region that we are able to explore will look and feel different from one another. And even though it wasn't mentioned in this article, another specific write-up from that of Game Informer actually described 2 other regions that we can look into, with that of underwater areas as well as playing in orbit. And given the fact that we actually got to see those particular regions playable within the War Table livestream, it's nice to have confirmation that that's exactly what those entail. But as for the missions themselves, this is where things start to heat up. For starters, we have that of iconic missions. While hero missions are the campaign-crafted, hero-focused missions, we also have Warzone missions crafted as unique hero stories which evolve the story of a specific Avenger and provide context to how they dealt with the fallout from A-Day. How does Tony feel about AIM repurposing his tech for their own ends? What are the ramifications of Hulk's extended stay as the Big Green? Iconic outfits and powerful gear await at the end of a chain of iconic missions. So again, as I've made abundantly clear, I could care less about any type of cosmetic attire that is featured within this game. But on the flip side, the reason why these iconic missions intrigue me so much is because it's a great way to dive deeper into that specific character portrayal of that particular Avenger. So seeing that they are trying to incorporate as much story as possible, even with that of the co-op missions, is just a great thing to see. And even though we were aware of them trying to do that previously, it's great to get a bit more context as to exactly how this is going to be played out. But as we keep going within the article, this is where we start to lead into the more Destiny/Anthem related missions that we can expect within this game. And this brings us to faction missions. In addition to reassembling the Avengers, players will help rebuild outposts for their allies. S.H.I.E.L.D. suffered greatly after the disbanding of the Avengers, and the Resistance formed as a direct result of AIM's increasingly authoritarian activity worldwide. Players can take part in missions to provide these factions intel, supplies, and defend them from AIM attacks. Even cooler, the Helicarrier becomes populated by members of these factions who want to help in the fight against AIM. Faction leaders will also give out missions as part of the ongoing conflict in the post-campaign world and provide faction-specific rewards. So again, like we saw within the War Table livestream, these faction members can be seen walking around the Helicarrier and providing each Avenger with different missions. And while I do have to agree that it does sound pretty cool seeing the Helicarrier be more upgraded and populated as you continue playing these specific missions, I'm still not that big of a fan as to how similar it is portrayed to that of other live service games in regards to Destiny and Anthem. However, I can only keep my fingers crossed to hope that they will somehow innovate in that regard one way or another. Now, alongside of these iconic and faction-related missions, this is where we really start to head towards the Destiny and Anthem route, which I'm not that big of a fan of. Initially, we have drop zones and vaults. To simply begin with drop zones, these are short missions with a single objective, such as defending allies or sabotaging an AIM structure. As for vaults, these are large explorable spaces that take some legwork to uncover. To access a vault, you first have to locate the coordinates from hidden shield caches around the world. Once you've found the entrance, you must fight your way inside and breach the vault before you reap the rewards. Again, this is where we start to get into the heavy looter shooter elements of Marvel's Avengers. So just be prepared ahead of time to fully grind through a plethora of levels to try and get the best gear for your specific character. And speaking on behalf of myself, knowing that I'm not the biggest Destiny or Anthem fan, I can only hope that these missions will play more fun in comparison to how they sound like now. So while these drop zones and vaults don't sound like my cup of tea, these next two actually sound right up my alley. And to wrap up these various Warzone mission types, we now have hives and villain sectors. As far as hives go, these are aim strongholds located throughout the world. The Avengers must uncover their location and fight their way through, and a gauntlet of increasingly challenging aim defenses in order to disable them. And lastly, which is in regards to the mission variety which I think I will look the most forward to, is that of villain sectors. These missions culminate with a boss fight, such as notable Marvel villains working in tandem with AIM, or one of the organization's extra deadly constructs. So again, knowing that this is pretty much Marvel's version of Destiny, I'm very curious to see exactly how boss fights are going to work within this game. And knowing that you will have other Avengers on your side while you do fight this boss, whether you are in single player or co-op, is going to be very interesting to see be played out. And if you are someone who has played these types of games before, like that of Destiny or Anthem, these missions will sound pretty familiar to you. But even after knowing all this, I still don't want the Avengers project to simply be a carbon copy of those games, but rather try and learn from what made those games fun in the first place and apply that within Marvel's Avengers in an even more expansive manner. And given the fact that's exactly what it seems like they're trying to do, I can only hope that that will pay off in the long run once the game fully releases. So while that pretty much wraps up the latest info in regards to the Warzone missions that we can expect in Marvel's Avengers, the last few segments of this article do provide a very interesting send-off. And as Philippe goes on to say, like we know already, launch is just the beginning for Marvel's Avengers. The narrative will continue to be delivered on an ongoing basis with new missions, superheroes, and regions delivered at no additional cost. For you PlayStation fans, don't forget that by pre-ordering, you'll be able to play the beta first on PS4. Check out our February blog for other benefits. We will also have new perks such as PlayStation exclusive monthly community challenges revealed in the near future. The team is working extremely hard to polish the game and squash bugs while working from our homes around the globe. As mega Marvel fans ourselves, we are committed to delivering the definitive Avengers gaming experience. I'm looking forward to jumping online with you when the game launches this September. So even though we don't know exactly how these community challenges are going to work, it's pretty cool that this is yet again another advantage of owning the PlayStation version of Marvel's Avengers, whether that be on PS4 or PS5. And after reading all of this information, it's very obvious to tell that everyone at Crystal Dynamics is trying their absolute best to truly make a pretty unique game. But based on all the footage that we did see of Marvel's Avengers during the War Table livestream, I didn't necessarily see any of that ingenuity on full display. So fingers crossed that with all these new details provided, that the final product will truly surpass my current expectations. But with all that said, everyone, that's the video I have for you today, and please let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you think about all the new details that were provided for the Warzone missions in Marvel's Avengers, and are you excited to play them for yourself once the game does release? Again, I personally think that the co-op element of this game is going to be its biggest selling point. So if Crystal isn't able to fully master that gameplay loop once it does release and keep players entertained, I won't see this game lasting for very long. But again, all we can do is hope for the absolute best outcome. And until next time, everyone, thank you all so much for watching, stay merry Marvelites, and peace out.
I'm here. Who needs their ass kicked?
You know what we call that? We call that a web-slinging ass-kicking.